Hello, wider listeners. It is once again that time of the week. What time of the week is it? Well, it's that time of the week where we dig underneath the headlines. We pierce through that mainstream media and its capitalist propaganda and get you to some hard-hitting truths. We examine what's going on at the global, national, international, and extremely local level from a deft leftist lens, and quite generally call out the establishment on its BS. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program. Now, as always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 FM, WIDR Kalamazoo, or Western Michigan University, no matter how dope or insightful they may be. So, as always, got a lot to talk about on the show this evening. I don't know if y'all knew the presidential primaries started, kind of. We're going to be talking a lot of bit, about Iowa later on. We're going to be joined by a very special guest who is on the ground over there as a volunteer for the Bernard Sanders campaign. We're also going to be talking about a new attack on trans rights that is happening in several states, including Kentucky and the other one off the top of my head. But we're going to be talking about those stories. Oh, South Dakota, that's right. It just hit me in the head. But we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on in the program. It's pretty heinous stuff. Why don't we start with some local stories, and I don't know, we'll do good news, bad news first. Let's do the, I wouldn't even say it's bad news, it's critical news. Or you know what, actually, I'm going to do the good news first, because my co-host joins me in the next few minutes. I'm sure they've got a few things to say about the bad news. So let's start with the good news first. So this is a story, you might have seen it the other day. It was posted just a couple days ago. But City of Kalamazoo... Hold on, sorry. No. Sorry, there's audio playing in one of my tabs here. We don't need that. We don't need that yet. Nah. Anyway, this was published a couple days ago by the Gazette on February 3rd. Kalamazoo hires Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. This is written by Brad Devereaux. Dorla Bonner has been named to the position of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Director for the City of Kalamazoo, according to a news release from the city. The new position is the Kalamazoo City Manager's Office is meant to promote the city's commitment, both within the city organization and within the community, to ensure that diverse, equitable, and inclusive opportunities exist for all who work and live in the City of Kalamazoo. The new position was approved as part of the 2020 budget. Bonner began the position on February 2nd. Bonner has served as the city's community investment manager, and that position will be filled by current economic development project coordinator Antonio Mitchell. We heard clearly from the community during the Imagine Kalamazoo process that strengthening the diversity and inclusion of our organization is an extremely high priority, City Manager Ritzema said in a prepared statement. Kalamazoo residents feel strongly that reducing bias and increasing acceptance among all people will help enrich the city of Kalamazoo as a community as well. With the creation of this position, we will be able to focus on this goal even more and intentionally work toward reaching a great vision for the city. Bonner will direct the evaluation, development, and implementation of policies, procedures, and programs through the lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion. She will work directly with all departments within the city and with community stakeholders to ensure that these shared values are evident in the city's service delivery and collaborations, according to a news release. Bonner said in a prepared statement, "So often we look at equity, diversity, and inclusion in terms of transactions, such as holding an anti-racism workshop, hiring a few people of color, or holding an event during MLK Day. While those things are good and needed, they do not necessarily translate into the change they are intending to bring. I am honored and look forward to being part of a transformation that will bring the results of equity, diversity, and inclusion. And while it will not be easy, it is essential, and most importantly, it is time. Bonner has worked for the City of Kalamazoo since 2010 in the area of community development. She has managed programs that impact human services, including equity work, the Shared Prosperity Kalamazoo Initiative, affordable housing, HUD programs, and business development. Before working for the city, Bonner spent time in Rockford, Illinois, managing programs aimed at providing education, training, and employment strategies for residents of the Housing Authority from 2002 to 2010. She also coordinated federal employment and training programs for several years. She plans to graduate from Grand Rapids Theological Seminary with a Master of Arts in Leadership this spring, has completed advanced coursework for a Master of Arts in Public Administration from Phoenix University, and holds a Bachelor of Business from WMU, the city said. Bonner has been a member of numerous community boards, committees, and task forces in the Kalamazoo area over the last 2 years, focusing on equity, inclusion, and affordable housing issues, according to the news release. So, just a couple of things to say there. I mean, I think the article mostly speaks for itself. I am very happy that they have somebody, particularly who has a background in affordable housing issues. You know, that's always a huge issue here in Kalamazoo, and particularly when you break it down demographically, low-income people, particularly low-income black folks here in Kalamazoo, seem to have a much harder time with affordable housing issues than even a lot of poor white folks or poor Latinx folks do. Of course, that speaks to a history of redlining, etc. We've talked about that on the show before. Maybe sometime we can have Matt Smith on to talk about that in depth. He's gone around and done a lot of very important lectures on the subject, but I digress. But I think it's a good step for the city, and particularly what she talks about in this article here, what Bonner does, is that we can't just have kind of these token one-off signifiers of diversity and inclusion. We have to actually get into the actual roots, the actual foundations, where these issues of equity and equality intersect with economic ones. It is not enough to simply have, equity or inclusion in the city government. We have to make sure that translates to how people live actually in the city, how those economic outcomes translate. Now, we've talked about it on the show before, there are definitely concerns, the Foundation for Excellence itself, which is that kooky little funding mechanism for the city that, instead of taxes, a couple of billionaires basically carry the purse strings of the city for good and particularly for ill. It's a lot of undue influence. Anyway, but I think it's good that a program that started, it's kind of that racist, regressive tax policy, which first thing that the Foundation for Excellence did was offer a property tax cut, which again, the majority of those who don't own property are low-income folks, and particularly low-income black folks. So it'll be interesting to see if this inclusion, equity, diversity officer is able to really address those issues here in the city. And, I'd definitely like to invite them on the program. I'm probably going to send them an email or something, maybe to hopefully get them on in the next couple weeks and really pick their brain about, what they think some of the issues in Kalamazoo are, and in particular, how we're going to work on them. So I'm actually, before I get into the next article, I'm going to take just a quick little break, get myself some water. We'll be right back. Please enjoy the sounds of Quantum Fleek for the few seconds that I am out of the studio. right, I'm back. So I've got some bad news for everybody, particularly on where you get your pancakes. I don't know where you go on Saturday, Sunday morning. Maybe, I don't know if you're a student, maybe you've gone out and you've gone to a couple of kickers. Or if you're like me, you're an old 30-something-year-old and you had a couple of beers, but you basically feel the same way in the morning. As we said on the show last week, your tolerance gets a little lower as you get older. Anyway, I don't know, there's lots of options. There's a lot of good breakfast places in Kalamazoo. You know, there's Crow's Nest. You can barely get in on the weekends there anymore. There's Blue Dolphin, Studio Grill, Theo and Stacy's. But do you know what's some bad choices for breakfast? Well, Anna's House. Oh, and for those of you who've been following the show for a while, I believe we called out Anna's House a while ago, about a year ago or so, for being donors to the Trump campaign. And it looks like they just got themselves into some hot water. Funnily enough, I guess, you know, if the Trump supporter, well, do it where Trump isn't racist. Well, I don't know, but the people giving him money apparently are, or at least they are in the midst of a discrimination lawsuit. So let's go ahead and read from this article. This was published by the Gazette on January 31st. Anna's House restaurant chain facing lawsuit claiming workplace discrimination. A restaurant chain based in West Michigan is facing a lawsuit over claims of workplace discrimination, including an accusation that a worker was asked to remove her hijab. The lawsuit was filed Thursday, January 30th, in U.S. District Court in Detroit against Anna's House. In it, two former workers at the chain's Westland location claim they were fired without justification. Leaders of the Michigan chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations announced the court case the same day it was filed. One of the workers was a manager at the Westland restaurant, and the other was a kitchen manager at the same location. According to the lawsuit, the manager was asked to tell a front counter worker that she needed to remove her hijab at work. Hijab is a head covering worn by some Muslim women as governed by religious code. I think most of my listeners probably know what a hijab is. Anyway, just that seemed like a weird definition. I don't know. It's very clerical. Anyway, the manager refused to inform the worker and instead texted Anna's House owner Josh Beckett that he should consult with an attorney to make sure the restaurant's practices are legal and ethical. Lawyers for the fired workers allege Beckett ordered general managers at other Anna's House restaurants not to hire anyone wearing a hijab, which is, very much literal, discrimination. You can't discriminate based on a religious belief. Anyway, before she was fired, the Westland location manager said she also was asked to remove two black workers that could not dye their hair red. What is it with policing black people's hair? I'm glad I've never had to work at an office. I guess that working in the healthcare industry, they basically it's okay, can you make sure that people don't die? Yeah, all right. Wear your hair, however. Yes. Anyway, before she was at the same time, no such requests were given about white workers who dyed their hair, lawyers said. According to the lawsuit, Beckett allegedly asked another worker at the Westland location whether the kitchen manager prayed at work. The kitchen manager is a Sinhalese Muslim and, in fact, did pray in an office. If you're a Muslim, you do. Most of Western Christianity is very pray whenever, pray during mealtimes, perhaps. That's basically the same way it is with folks who practice the Muslim faith. Anyway, lawyers for the fired workers dismissed on June 19th alleged the question about praying targeted the kitchen manager because he is Muslim. Beckett released a statement about the lawsuit. Anna's House is aware of the lawsuit filed today. We have retained counsel and will defend against these claims in court. Anna's House has and continues to be a place that employs and serves people of all backgrounds and beliefs. Oh, I'm sure. Anna's house, according to the company website, has 8 locations around the state. That does include that one over on Stadium Drive. Just a quick reminder, this news story is not about that particular location. Just to be fair, I don't want to give everyone a false impression of where this racist shenanigans is happening. But it was at a location kind of in on that, like, outer Detroit, basically, which, you know, the thing about that is, if you understand the culture and the demographics of that area, it almost makes it a little bit more outrageous because, Dearborn, Michigan, and like the kind of area around that has the single largest diaspora of, Middle Eastern Muslims in the country. It seems to me like you would at the very least be used to, working around other workers who are Muslim. The fact that you're trying to be so openly discriminatory in an area where, those are just the folks who live there. It's not only racist and dumb, it's also just kind of ridiculous. And to the people who, I guess, were like offended about working with Muslims, sorry, but this is America, snowflake. People are allowed to practice whatever religions they want. Gay people can get married, etc., etc. Again, if you want to read the full article for yourself, you can find that on MLive. Title that article, Anna's House restaurant chain facing lawsuit claiming workplace discrimination. So I think right now we're going to go to a little break. When we come back, my co-host should be joining me in a few minutes. We will be joined by somebody who was on the ground volunteering for Bernie Sanders over in Iowa. Till then, we're going to take a little bit of a break. Please stay tuned for all that. Y'all listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution.
I wonder what we're gonna hear on Wider FM today. Oh, this is nice, but, I want to hear something else.
It's the bad man from Bristol, banging it kinda critical. Blow your party out for good times. Like
this is also good, but what more can they offer?
super heavy with the styles you could ever do.
We get by.
I guess it's true.
Love and faith.
Wider really is
We get
Radio
by
Evolution.
with a smile.
89.1 FM, WIDR Kalamazoo.
We get by with help from our kin.
Voting is important. From deciding Kalamazoo's best drunk food to picking the fan favorite for Wider's Battle of the Bands, voting allows people to voice their opinions and change their world. To vote for offices such as mayors, senators, and the president takes a little more than a link to a Google Forms survey. Before you vote, you have to register. This can be done in person, by mail, and, in many states, online. For more information, you can point your favorite web browser to vote.gov.
Temple. Every Monday night at 10 o'clock p.m. All the metal your heart desires awaits. Only on 89.1 FM WIDR Kalamazoo.
All right, everyone, we're back. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. So I'm now joined by my co-host, Mr. Lawrence Calbert.
Yep, a wild Lawrence is a beard. What's up?
Yep. Mm-hmm. So like I said, I think now is about that time. Let's dig into the Iowa Caucus. We're expecting the full results sometime in October. No,
they keep trickling in, and the more it trickles in, the more we find out there's more problems with what's going on. Even Biden supporters like Simone Sanders are saying that there are failures and quality misinformation and misplacement of delegates. For some reason, out of nowhere, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders delegates are going to people who didn't get a vote. Like that's a new problem from the original problem, which was the app crash that they were supposed to be using.
Yeah,
so we have a brand new problem.
And we're gonna be deep diving into all the weird implications of that in just a second. So here's just an example of some of the shenanigans that are going on. This is from the Blackhawk County election supervisor, and it's one of those that wasn't showing up really, it goes on. So, folks, I don't know what's going on with the Iowa Democratic Party and the slow trickle of results. I know for a fact they have had the count from Blackhawk County for over 24 hours and will not clearly explain to anyone, not even me as an elected official, what the process is for releasing our results. I do not understand why these complete results were not released yesterday, and the leadership of the Iowa Democratic Party will not tell me. This is not a reflection on our hard-working party leaders like Vicki Brown, who are being left on the cold just as much as you and me, et cetera, et cetera. So here's something interesting. So here's the Blackhawk County precinct. This is the projections that were on, I believe it's from CNN's website. And they had Sanders with 1,638 votes and Buttigieg with 1,588. So that's about 24.2 to 23.4, like less than a percentage point with Sanders in the lead. By Blackhawk County's results, Bernie Sanders got 2,149 votes and Buttigieg got 1,578. That's so yeah. There's a little bit of a mismatch.
Also, what's also happening in Blackhawk County? Please read this. Please read the rest of that post. That's from that man. That Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders delegates went to Deval Patrick and Tom Steyer. Let me remind you that in that one particular area, Tom Steyer and Deval Patrick got 0% of the vote.
Yes.
Yet the delegates that Sanders and Elizabeth Warren got from that area went to them. So this is the second problem. This isn't even the first problem. This is the second problem. The first problem is that they didn't stress test the app that they were going to use. They were moving to this app. By the way, the app was paid for by Pete Buttigieg and Joe Biden. One of the people who are helping developing the act was a former Hillary Clinton surrogate.
Yeah, this whole mess is like a perfect storm of corruption, bias, and just plain old everyday incompetence.
Yeah. So. Outside of the fact that you had people who were the supervisors and captains of these caucus sites that didn't have the app or didn't understand how to use the app and things of that nature, you had people who are literally in the game running for president or who wants to influence the game of the presidency using having them go through these gatekeepers for us to have a proper democracy. That's in the same token, that's like the Kansas City Chiefs paying the refs to make sure that the rules go in their favor. So it's not a conspiracy theory, even though a lot of mainstream media wants to talk about it. It's not a conspiracy theory when it's true that you are literally switching delegates to people who didn't get a vote, on top of the fact that the app that you're using and the structure that's being used was being paid for by people who are running for president.
By the way, I'm just going to say this real quick, too. A lot of y'all are being, like, gaslit. I've been seeing a couple individuals, like, y'all are going to be launching into conspiracy theories. And it's like, after everything that happened last time, if that's your first take, if your first the first thing that comes out of your head or your mouth is like, oh no, everybody's going to come up with conspiracy theories again in the face of this Iowa fiasco. Go eat an eggplant.
Right. Dog, go screw yourself with an organically grown cucumber, dog, because it's not a conspiracy theory if it's true. Even Simone Sanders, who is someone who, in my opinion, if we didn't have money in politics, would be a fantastic Democrat. But you know, she's a ranked careerist, so she's going to do what the money she's going to move where the money moves. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, even she's going out on CNN, on MSNBC, saying, "Nah, dog, these results is kind of skewed." Now, I think that the Biden campaign is saying that these results are kind of skewed because I believe that he came in fifth at this point.
Yeah.
At this point, I think he came in fifth.
There's this hilarious meme or tweet I saw. It was so brutal and to the point. In it, like Biden's like, "Hey, Barack, did I do good in the Iowa Caucus? Did I do well?" And then just Obama's just like loading up a 38. It's like, yeah, Joe, you did great. I'm about to endorse you. He just starts crying. It's just
that's the old yeller. Old yeller.
Yep.
That's horrible. We do not condone that, by the way. Let's not get it twisted.
Oh, the DNC has their own way.
No, it's not. Here's the problem, and this is the problem that I have with the new stuff that's coming out now. Well, there's multiple layers. First thing is, it's Wednesday. If you're telling me that y'all haven't gotten your stuff together and the Iowa caucus and all that stuff happened on Monday and we're moving to New Hampshire next week, all right, cool. So if you want to make the argument that caucuses, well, I made the argument that caucuses are better for progressives because progressives usually have more people who are more enthusiastic go there. So you're going to hear, so what you've been hearing is a lot of arguments saying, yo, we got to get rid of caucuses, point blank, period. If they get rid of caucuses, then we have to replace it with ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
If you do not replace it with ranked choice voting, they're going to replace it with a very similar system to like closed primary stuff, like you saw in New York, where they can manipulate the vote, massage the delegate count, like how they're doing here, in favor of the establishment. The only difference with this caucus is you have literal people who are objective and honest, who's going out on Twitter saying, yo, dog, this ain't right. I saw it with my own eyes. I'm putting up the information because the DNC is lying. So this is the reason why I know caucuses are upsetting the people. I think that we need to keep caucuses and keep in this certain level of transparency where you can have people come out and say, yo, they're rigging it. This is how they're rigging it. And we need to actually have people and bodies there. So that we can because if we leave it to the establishment and we leave it to the people who's running it, they're gonna do this underhanded crap, and they're just gonna tell you to sit there and take it like they did in 2016. So I'm not here for that. Now, if you want to say we should need to get rid of caucuses because it disenfranchises those with material needs, like people who need babysitters and people can't be there because of work. I understand that. If you're going to advocate for that, then you also have to say in that same breath, we need to replace it with ranked choice voting. That's my first thing.
Hard agree. And
so it's quick thing. I know I'm going on a rant, but just quick thing. Second thing is, since we know that there's weird inconsistencies with Black Hawk County, now that calls into question all the rest of the counties.
Yeah, versus their results versus what the DNC is reporting, or would it be the Iowa Democratic Party?
According to what Bernie and the rest of the, because they all have internal polling. Why do you think Mayor Pete tried to Juan Guaido his way to saying that he won victory? You know what I'm saying? Like he really did. He really tried to Juan Guaido and say like, hey yo, I was victorious. We ain't got all the results in. Don't worry about that. Yo, we victorious out here.
Yeah. Oh, man.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think that kind of ties. I'm going to just read a couple excerpts from Li Fong. There's a lot of people. So right after the caucus debacle, people were starting to make some connections. things involving a company called Acronym and a subsidiary called Chat, which that just sounds like it sounds like it's either from like a James Bond movie or like Metal Gear Solid. It's like,
oh no, that's
Snake,
definitely
we have some alarming information about the Acronym Group and their shadow program.
Yeah, that's straight up. That's Metal Gear Solid. That's what's the other one? That's definitely James Bond.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
That's definitely all the spy movies. Like that sounds like that should have been in Kingsman.
The Democratic Party, they wonder why people don't trust them, and then they outsource groups like this.
No, but this is the other thing, because this is my last thing about this. Why do you think that they're trying to? In my opinion, if this is an honest mistake, it's an honest mistake. In my opinion, I don't think this is an honest mistake, and I think that the reason why they're doing it is because they want to depress turnout.
You know, I agree. I think we're actually going to get, in a moment, we're going to dive a little deeper into that. I'm going to have my guest call in, and we're going to still be talking about the Iowa Caucus. I want to pivot to this real quick, and then bring her on the show. Just a couple of things. This kind of cements a little bit of all of that going back and forth. But this is from The Intercept. Li Fong wrote it. New details show how deeply Iowa Caucus app developer was embedded in Democratic establishment. So I'll just start off. Democratic operative Tara McGowan is denying that her high-profile liberal firm Acronym played a role in the Monday evening caucus debacle, claiming that her firm was merely an investor in the company Shadow Incorporated, which developed the app at the center of the controversy. But internal company documents, a source close to the firms, and public records show a close and intertwined relationship between Acronym and Shadow. You already know all the wonky problems that happen. But this is... So Kyle Tharp, a spokesman for Acronym, released a statement on Monday night downplaying his company's affiliation with Shadow. But previous statements and internal Acronym documents suggest the two companies, which share office space in Denver, are deeply intertwined. Last year, McGowan, a co-founder of Acronym, wrote on Twitter that she was so excited to announce another Acronym has acquired Groundbase, a firm that included their incredible team led by Gerard Namira, plus are launching Shadow, a new tech company to build smarter infrastructure for campaigns. With Shadow, we're building a new model incentivized by adoption over growth. What does that even mean? That's like the most bizarre corporate non-speak ever. Adoption over growth. What that means is that the people who are working on this app who are deeply tied to people who judge in Joe Biden and also Hillary Clinton, and that one of them is actually married to a surrogate to people to judge. It's more focused on funneling the money, very similar like how they funneled the money through the Clinton Foundation to the DNC back to Hillary Clinton. Yeah, they're funneling the money from this consulting group from the DNC to this consulting group that's going to help organize our election. Yep, and going on, and again, this is from so an internal organization chart shows digital strategy firm Lockwood Strategy, FWIW Media, and Shadow as part of a unified structure with Acronym staff involved in the trio's operations. They talked about how Shadow is working on scaling up VAN integration with Shadow messaging for some Iowa Caucus clients. VAN is the voter activation network. That's basically what anybody involved who's canvassing, knocking on doors, that's what they use if they're running in the Democratic primary. A person with knowledge of the company's culture, who has to remain anonymous for fear of reprisal, shared communications showing that top officials at the company regularly expressed hostility to Senator Bernie Sanders supporters. McGowan is married to Michael Hale, a senior strategist with the Buttigieg campaign.
Maybe that's just a wild coincidence.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's just a wild coincidence.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the person who's developing the app that's now saying that Mayor Pete's one just happens to be married to one of the people who's working.
I wonder how he knew on Monday night before everybody else's results that he was gonna win.
Yeah,
I wonder.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, dog, that again. That's literally like the quarterback of the Chiefs paying off the refs.
Yeah.
like that's not a joke. That's not a punchline.
No.
That's real facts. Lee Fong, shout out to Lee Fong from The Intercept, man. He's doing the Lord's work.
Oh,
Please
yeah.
keep reading.
All right. So, as some of y'all have probably read, Shadow is also retained for digital services by Buttigieg's campaign, which paid the company $42,500 for software-related services. I guess in the grand scheme of things, isn't a whole lot, but I think coupled with the culture of the company that was described and this kind of nepotistic relationship that Buttigieg has with people who own this company, that's all goes beyond the, tinfoil hat conspiracy thing. That's like, wait, those are some legitimate conflicts of interest, and I'll just one last thing I want to read from here. Acronym, it's a hybrid model of a 501c4 entity that does not disclose donors, and a super PAC that does has been a favorite for deep-pocketed Democratic donors. Acronym appears to have deleted portions of its website showcasing its involvement in Shadow. Acronym is thrilled to announce the launch of Shadow, a new technology company that will exist under the Acronym umbrella and build accessible technological infrastructure and tools to enable campaigns to better harness, integrate, and manage data across the platforms and the technologies that they use, wrote Namira in a now deleted blog post. Oh boy, folks.
Again, shout out to Lee Fang, man. He's the journalist that I want to be one day. Him and Glenn Greenwald both be doing the Lord's work out here, man. In my opinion, man. Like, it doesn't make sense. It does not make sense that you have to hear this on The Intercept. You have to get this information from The Intercept. You will not get this information from MSNBC, CNN. You're not going to get this from CBS. You're not getting this from anywhere else. You didn't see Van Jones reading this off. You didn't see Joy Reid reading off that information. And they work for a multinational. They work for a multinational corporations. Yeah, like, dog, Rachel Maddow can scream for 20 to 30 minutes about Russia. You ain't gonna talk about this? This is literal. Like, we talked about pay-to-pay corruption. We talked about the stuff that you talk about, where we talk about 45 being corrupt. This is the same type of corruption. The same type. And that's happening in our party against us. Again, that's not happening against the Republicans. That's happening to us, people who we consider being on the left. Like, that's not cool.
No, it certainly is not. Excuse me, just a sec.
So the point that I'm like, also other breaking news that's coming out of Iowa. There's been some polling that's coming out of Iowa. Guess who, when it comes to the non-white voters of Iowa, who was leading in the biggest support groups?
Well, it can't be Bernie because only white people like him, right?
You're wrong. When it comes to the non-white voters in the overwhelming majority of the caucus states, the caucus precincts, Bernie Sanders won over 43%. When it came to independents, Bernie Sanders won over 40%. Everybody else was 15% and lower. Like, when it came to independents, we hear from the Democratic Party all the time. You need independents to beat Trump.
No,
you need a broad appeal to win and to beat Trump. And you need people who are non-white. You need non-white participants. And you need to have a vast majority to beat Trump. Bernie did that. He did that in spades.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's worth bringing up. A lot of people are a little sour right now that we don't have the full results. And, it's still so close. I think at last I checked, 75, 80. Like, the map that I was reading, it was very interesting because it showed, like, they were... The places where Bernie was projected to get the most support were staggered on to be kind of the last places they gathered caucus data from. Yeah. So it skews it in a certain way that even if Bernie did win, it feels like they're trying to make sure we don't know until the last minute. Like, you know, the caucus results, the full caucus results haven't even been released yet. So maybe by the end of the week, we'll find out, oh, actually Bernie did win by it will be close, you know, regardless of whatever happened on the ground. It's going to be a very close result.
So your theory is that before New Hampshire or even after New Hampshire, they'll be like, hey, Bernie ended up winning Iowa, by the way, BT dubs. But we got to move on because Iowa's coming up or Nevada's coming up. Again, I agree. I can see that theory because what's the main thing that comes out of Iowa outside the delegates? It's the media tour, the media press, the media. If Pete Buttigieg really won, then they have royally screwed over the media bump that he was going to get. If he won. If he didn't win, then they successfully snatched that bump in the polling that gets that momentum going for a candidate for the other person who might have won, who may look like being Bernie Sanders. So
I want to back up and say, I'm not saying it is to the letter intentional, but I'm saying that is the effect that it has, especially going in. It was very clear that, Bernie was either going to win or, come very, very close.
When you look at his internal polling, he was up by 5-6 points. And that was with 60%, with 60% of his internal polling, it looked like Bernie was going to win by 60 points. And honestly, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, and this is me pointing to my bias. I honestly trust Bernie Sanders' internal polling more than I trust the DNCs, because it sounds like a lot of the DNC. It sounds like a lot of people who are running the DNC right now are still doing some of the same mess that got Hillary to win, and also is part of that same corruption of why we got Trump. And also, what do you think Trump is going to use in the general election? He's going to say, "Look at the Democrats. Look at the Democrats. Look at how they ran the caucus. Look at the puny and pathetic way they messed up their own caucus. They're trying to screw over Bernie again. You see this? They're trying to screw over the American people. I didn't screw over the American people. Do you not listen to my State of the Union where I lied for 2.5 hours?
Oh man!
Which also we need to talk about.
We should at least a little bit. I think not so much.
I need to talk about.
I do want to fact check a couple things.
But I gotta talk about Gretchen Whitmer.
Yeah.
I gotta talk about Gretchen Whitmer's response and Bernie's response.
So how about let's do this.
God.
Let's take a little break. I think let's go ahead and we'll go forward talking about State of the Union stuff. I'm hoping our guest can still join us, at which point we'll return to the Iowa Caucus topic. Until then, let's go ahead and take a quick break. Y'all listen to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution.
Good evening. I'm honored to be here.
All right, y'all, we are back. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. So, we're coming back. We're talking about State of the Union stuff, and we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about Trump, maybe a little bit. We're going to spend a little bit more time talking about the response, which is from our own dear governor, Gretchen Whitmer. I'll admit, I forgot to watch it.
I saw this and Bernie's response. Gretchen Whitmer, we need you to come to the front of the congregation and sit in front of on the first pew, because Lord, we got to have a conversation.
So,
Jesus
did you want
Christ.
me to play like the start of this and then kind of comment as we go?
Play like the first 2 minutes, 3 minutes of this. Cause let me set this up for y'all. So there was multiple people who protested. Rashida Tlaib, who's from Michigan, protested, walked out when Trump started lying. There was multiple people who protested. Shout out to Auntie Maxine Waters. She wasn't even showing up. She was like, "Nah, dog, this is garbage. I ain't showing up." And for all the people who's yes queening for Speaker Pelosi because she ripped up the paper at the end, let me also remind y'all that she
It's
also
a quote Shania Twain. That don't impress me much.
Right, dog. She also was signing off too, and also helped put forth a lot of the horrible policies that the Democrats were supposed to be resisting in the first place. So I don't care that she's ripped up the paper. I do care that you stood up for the imperialism of him bringing Juan Guaido to the State of the Union.
Yeah.
You stood up and clapped
before
before Pence. Like, if you don't get your anyway, but I'm gonna talk about that later. But Gretchen Whitmer, my governor, I didn't vote for you because Abdul Aziz would have been a better governor. But
yep. No lies detected.
No lies detected. But homie G, you had one job to do. Your job was to not just show the difference of what Democrats were doing to actually better the country, which to give you some credit, when you talked about infrastructure, you did. When you talked about health care, you was lying. You placated a little bit, which we're gonna get to. But the first thing you're going to say within the first minute is that you're not going to address any of the lies that were said in the last 2 hours. You're not going to address any of the lies that Trump just said to the American people.
Well, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Let's go ahead. Let's play a quick clip, and then we will tear it apart post-mortem as opposed to pre-mortem.
Please do.
All right. Give me just a sec, folks.
Here and grateful that you're tuning in. I'm Gretchen Whitmer, the 49th governor of the great state of Michigan. Tonight, I'm at my daughter Sherry and Sydney's public school, East Lansing High School. We're here today with families and parents, teachers, and most importantly, students. I want to thank you all for coming, but tonight I'm going to talk to those of you who are watching at home. I'd need a lot more than 10 minutes to respond to what the president just said. So instead of talking about what he is saying, I'm going to highlight what Democrats are doing. After all, you can listen to what...
All right, so we're going to pause it right there. Yeah.
This is in the first 45 seconds. Pause it. Here's the thing. those two things are not acquiescent of each other. They're not. Those two things can coexist at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You can smack down a lie and give facts on what the Democrats are doing at the same time.
Yes.
Like, for you to say, I'm not going to address any of the lies, like Trump saying that he wants to cut Social Security, Trump and Pence wanting to put in more stipends and block grants, which is literally cutting Medicare and Medicaid. Because of Trump's tax cuts, over 7 million people lost their health insurance. The ICE raids that were happening in Michigan, people having their families snatched up. Him saying that our country is safer because of ICE and things of that nature. Him lying about illegal immigration. Him lying about Juan Guaido.
Oh man, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, dog, you're not gonna talk about any of that. You're choosing within the first 45 seconds to not talk about any of you're choosing in your 10-minute speech to not talk about any of that. Have you lost your mind?
Well, I mean, to be fair, my best guess is like, doesn't seem to me like Whitmer is the type who really has much of an opinion on Venezuela, or at least definitely not a lefty sort of opinion on it.
Doug, I mean, Trump's own government, FBI said that white domestic terrorism is the biggest terrorist threat that's in our country. We've had mass gun violence and mass shootings. You're telling me that when he was lying about how he's been protecting the American people, you're not going to bring that up?
Yes.
You're telling me that those lies that he said within the last 2 hours before she spoke, you're not going to bring up? Keep playing. Keep playing.
Yeah. Real quick aside to, because we're going to focus mostly on the response, but one of the things I did want to point out is in Trump's speech, some of the lies were really obvious, some of them not so much, and the economic lies I wanted to talk about, because he basically came out with a whole bunch of statistics and numbers that not only is it kind of dubious the methodology how you got there, but when he was talking about, like, this really irks me. Wages have gone up 16% since he got into office. He has not passed a single piece of legislation or executive order that would actually make that happen. As a matter of fact, he's trying to impede it. The reason wages have gone up is because workers across the country are fighting for 15 and are pushing for their wages and benefits.
Also on top of the fact that Trump has literally said that he thinks wages are too high, that the minimum wage should be lowered. Mm-hmm. He's actually advocated to lower the minimum wage. Like, he said that he was going to keep jobs here. He's over. There was more offshoring done in the last 3 years than the last 3 years of the Obama administration. Mm-hmm. That happened to hit the Midwest, in particular Michigan. And you're telling me that the governor of Michigan is not bringing that up.
And that's basically what he ran on. It was two things: racism and keeping our jobs here. I mean, he has given us plenty of racism, though. That campaign promise he's fulfilled thoroughly. But
easy lie. The great beautiful wall that he was trying to build, the wind literally knocked it down a few days ago. 100%, dog. That was an easy bigger 9. Using battle rap lingo.
You didn't even need all the plantules for that one. You just need one of them.
Like, dog, wind. Right. All you had to say was that. Even though I was like, you could have brought up climate change and been like, even Mother Nature doesn't even like Trump's big beautiful wall. It knocked it down recently. That was a lie. That's a lie that he said during the speech. Like, you would have heard out of nowhere the smack horns from the URL be like, beer, 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 Young DeMarco.
Yeah.
Bang, bang. Man. But keep playing. Please keep playing. All right.
So, again, this is Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
Yeah.
Someone says, but to know the truth, watch what they do. Michiganders are no different from Americans everywhere. We love our families and want a good life today and a better life tomorrow for our kids. We work hard, and we expect our government to work hard for us as well. We have grit and value loyalty, and we still root for the Detroit Lions.
So I just want to pause. So this last 15 seconds or so, she hasn't actually said anything yet. Is that right?
Okay. Oh wait, I want you. I want y'all to play a game while y'all listening to this. Notice when she actually talks about policy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's play it. Let's play it. Right. I have soda in here. I would grab alcohol, but even if I did, we would never open the bottle because she doesn't talk about it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We and all Americans might be weary of today's politics, but we must stay engaged. Our country, our democracy, our future demand it. We're capable of great things when we work together. We cannot forget that despite the dishonesty and division of the last few years, and that we heard tonight from the President of the United States, together we have boundless potential. And young Americans are proving that every day by taking action. That's what I want to focus on tonight. Monty Scott is 13 years old and lives in Muskegon.
Notice when she said she's going to talking about young people. Notice, and I want y'all to notice this. She's talking about young people. Is she talking about the Sunrise Movement? Is she talking about Fight for 15? Is she talking about,
let's say, some of the water protectors up in the UP?
What about the water
now?
protectors hitting Flint?
Yeah,
Is she talking about any of those grassroots activists?
Yeah.
No, keep going.
Heights, Michigan. Monty Street was covered in potholes. They were ankle deep, and he got tired of waiting for them to get fixed. So he grabbed a shovel and a bucket of dirt and filled them in himself. During my campaign, people told me to fix the damn roads because blown tires and broken windshields are downright dangerous. And car repairs take money from rent, childcare, or groceries. And we, the Democrats, are doing something about it. In Illinois, Governor J.B. Pritzker passed a multi-billion-dollar plan to rebuild their roads and bridges. Governor Phil Murphy is replacing lead pipes in New Jersey. All across the country, Democratic leaders are rebuilding bridges, fixing roads, expanding broadband, and cleaning up drinking water.
So I'm just going to pause and say, so they can replace the lead pipes in New Jersey, but
It sounds like, yeah, and the ones here, though. But,
I mean, I will give some credit. I think it is wise to, it is a very bread and butter issue. And, she's certainly not wrong about any of this stuff. Car repairs, all that stuff, that is a huge bread and butter issue for, not just people in Michigan, but for in many parts of the country, especially, parts of the country with seasonal weather. I don't know if you've ever been down to dry parts of the United States. They need to replace their roads every 20 or 30 years. They're just,
Doc, I'm not even mad at the fact that she's name dropping people. I'm not even mad at the fact that she's name dropping people right now. I'm not even mad the next part. I'm not even mad at it. Actually, it's the best part of her speech. Keep going.
Everyone in this country benefits when we invest in infrastructure. Congressional Democrats have presented proposals to keep us moving forward. But President Trump and the Republicans in the Senate are blocking the path.
Pause it for a second.
When it comes to infrastructure, Monty has tried to...
Here's the thing. Maybe specificity is a problem for everybody else. Start name dropping just a few of that legislation. People have not realized that, yes, even though I give Nancy Pelosi a lot of crap, and I do, and she actually deserves more because she's standing in the way of progress, Congress has passed a whole lot of bills that the Senate has not brought up.
That is true.
And Chuck Schumer should be getting even more headache and even more crap from us because he's also not doing his job. So her talking about the infrastructure that Democrats are doing across the country, I don't even have a problem with that. But when you start talking about, Congress has been doing their job, Nancy Pelosi's been doing their job, and we've been working on infrastructure that's been creating more jobs. Cool. Start name dropping legislation. Start name dropping. Start talking about some of the specificity that we've done in Michigan to fix the roads, which she got to talk about pot roads. Also, to bring up a kid from Muskegon, and maybe this is just my problem because my dad's from Muskegon and Muskegon Heights. to bring up the fact that it wasn't the government of Muskegon or the state of Michigan that was trying to fix the infrastructure in Muskegon, but it was a kid. It was literally a child that was living in the city that said, since y'all not gonna do it, I'm gonna do it myself. That's an endearing story, but that's not helping your cause.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't make sense when you're talking about like. I mean, I guess you could turn it one way. It's like, well, this is why we need to spend money on infrastructure. It rings to me like those stories about like kids who like save up money to pay off their classmates' lunches, and it's like systemically, little kids shouldn't have to pay for their lunch at school.
Yeah.
This is not a feel-good story.
You know what I'm saying? Prosperity porn. That's what that is.
Prosperity porn. I'll have to remember that one.
That's what that is. It's. But yeah, keep playing.
To do more with a shovel and a pile of dirt than the Republicans in D.C. have with the Oval Office and the U.S. Senate.
No lies
Bullying
detected on that one.
People on Twitter doesn't fix bridges. It burns them. Our energy should be used to solve problems. And it's true for healthcare too. For me, for so many Americans, healthcare is personal, not political. When I was 30, I became a member of the sandwich generation. That means I was sandwiched between two generations of my own family for whom I was the primary caregiver.
Nobody cares about
I was
this.
holding down a new job, caring for my newborn daughter.
I'm sorry.
As well as my mom at the end of her brain cancer battle. I was up all night with a baby, and during the day, I had to fight my mom's insurance company when they wrongly denied her coverage for...
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Okay. Now, I think it's important to put your personal story in politics. You know, you use that. That's what you use to, like, connect yourself with voters and all that. You know, even Bernie Sanders has had to kind of learn this. Second time around, he's been a lot better and more adept at using his own personal story to frame why he cares about these issues. But is this woman about to talk about being denied health care? Miss Blue Cross Blue Shield? Is that right?
Yes, the lady. No, keep going. No, keep going. Because this is the part that pissed me off. Yes, you're right. Keep going. Keep it going.
It was hard. It exposed the harsh realities of our workplaces, our healthcare system, and our child care system. And it changed me. I lost patience for people who are just talk and no action. So as a state senator, I worked with a Republican governor and legislature to expand health care coverage to more than 680,000 Michiganders under the Affordable Care Act. Today, Democrats from Maine to Montana are expanding coverage and lowering costs. In Kansas, Governor Laura Kelly is working across the aisle to bring Medicaid coverage to tens of thousands. In New Mexico, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham enshrined ACA protections into law. Every Democrat running for president has a plan to expand health care for all Americans. Every one of them has supported the Affordable Care Act with coverage for people with pre-existing conditions. They may have different plans, but the goal is the same.
Pause it.
President Trump's...
No. No.
No.
No. Cease and desist. Stop it. No. I was giving you credit for everything that you did up before. I'll even take back the fact that I said no one cares about the sob stories that you be giving because some people actually like that crap. But when you start talking about healthcare, remember you ran against someone who wanted to do single payer in Michigan. You do not support single payer healthcare. This is the reason why the Democrats picked you. You are just like Nancy Pelosi. You are just like Mayor Pete. In many ways, your stance on healthcare is a lot similar to Joe Biden. You do not support single-payer healthcare, and to say that is similar to a public option or a stipend program or an expansion of Obamacare is a lie. Because you're not lying to you're lying to the country. More importantly, you're lying to the Democratic voters. And that's not cool.
No,
that's
not at all.
You are literally doing what Andrew Yang said, which was Medicare is a universal health care is an idea, but it's not a bill. Pramila Jayapal and Bernie Sanders both put in bills of Medicare for all. It's a literal bill of a literal name. It is not the same as a public option or Medicare for those who want it. And for you to say that is disingenuous, to say the least. It's upsetting, it is wrong, and you are lying to us. As someone who represents Michigan, as someone who's the governor of my state, I am appalled. I am disgusted. And I know you know better. Because you were supported by Blue Cross Blue Shield, who also hates Medicare for all. I know you know better. Stop it. Please continue. Please continue.
All right.
Please continue.
Sadly, has a different plan. He's asking the courts to rip those life-saving protections away.
Wait, pause it one more time.
It's pretty simple. Democrats are trying to make your health care
Wait. Play it and then
better. Republicans in Washington are trying to take it away.
Pause it.
Think about kids.
Here's the problem, Miss Whitmer. Miss Gretchen Whitmer. Here's the problem. You want to know one of those things that you could have said? Because President Trump did talk about Medicare, how he wasn't going to cut Medicare and Medicaid, how he wasn't going to cut Social Security. Those are all lies that he said in that 2-hour speech. You could have hit him there. 7 to 11 million Americans have lost their health insurance because of President Trump after the tax cut. You could have hit him there. When you said that the Republicans Democrats want to give people health care and the Republicans want to take it away, you could have hit them there. You chose. You literally chose. I don't know who your speechwriter was that wrote this. They need to be fired. You literally chose to not only disarm the progressive policy that the overwhelming majority of the Democratic Party supports, because 88% of the Democratic Party supports Medicare for all. Not only did you conflate that with a lie saying that it's that the end goal is the same as a universal health as a public option, you literally did not in any way, shape, or form talk about or show how the Republicans have literally snatched health care away from Americans. 45,000 Americans die every year because of lack of health care coverage. They die every year because of lack of health care coverage. Is it every year or every day? Hold on, let me look it up because I want to fact check. I'm trying to fact check this in real time. But no, please keep on playing.
All right, give me just a sec.
But yeah, dog.
It's like 17-year-old Blake Carroll from Idaho, who organized a fundraiser to pay for his mom's colon cancer treatment. Or 19-year-old Ebony Myers from Utah, who sells art to help pay for her own rare genetic disorder treatment. No one should have to crowdsource their health care. Not in America. But the reality is, not everyone in America has a job with health care and benefits.
Okay, pause.
In fact, many have jobs.
Okay. This is the Harvard study from 2000. This is a Harvard study from 2009. Nearly 45,000 deaths annually linked to lack of health care coverage. That's from 2009. Hold on a second. That was from a Harvard study. The number one source of bankruptcy in America is medical bankruptcy, which also happens. Mm-hmm. This is another thing that you could have hit the Republicans on. You chose not to. All right, please continue.
All right.
That don't even pay enough to cover their monthly expenses. Doesn't matter what the president says about the stock market. What matters is that millions of people struggle to get by or don't have enough money at the end of the month after paying for transportation, student loans, or prescription drugs. American workers are hurting. In my own state, our neighbors in Wisconsin and Ohio, Pennsylvania, and all over the country, wages have stagnated while CEO pay has skyrocketed. So when the president says the economy is strong, my question is, strong for whom? Strong
that's
for the
legit.
wealthy.
It was-
It was
reaping rewards
my
from
bad.
tax cuts they don't
That was
need.
Cambridge Health.
The American
Health
economy
Analysis,
needs to be
Allies.
a different kind of strong.
Cambridge Health
Strong
Allies.
for the science
That,
teacher, spending
that
her
gave
own
that,
money to buy
report.
supplies for her classroom.
Harvard
Strong for the
Gazette.
single mom picking up extra hours so she can afford her daughter's soccer cleats. Strong for the small business owner who has to make payroll at the end of the month. Michigan invented the middle class, so we know if the economy doesn't work for working people, it just doesn't work. Who fights for hardworking Americans? Democrats do.
Okay, so there's a book. I'd recommend everybody read it. It's called Listen Liberal, What Happened to the Party of the People by Thomas Frank.
Also, What's the Matter with Kansas? What's wrong with What's the Matter with Kansas?
Yeah,
Also a good book.
But Listen Liberal in particular it's laser focused on the Democratic Party's kind of descent from. And keep in mind, Democratic Party was never like a progressive populist party. You had a kind of progressive populist faction, kind of represented by people like, FDR and his, and more particularly his vice president, Harry Wallace. It was like Jimmy Carter was almost like the last of that breed, but yeah, the whole thing about Democrats fighting for working people, that hasn't even been arguably true since the Carter administration. Let's be keeping it 100 here.
I mean, no. I mean, I disagree with that. Has Democrats, the Democratic Party has fought for Democratic policies on a number of different occasions. The problem is, and this is the problem that we have, is that a lot of those same Democrats, and some of them are running in this election, also the overwhelming majority of the time didn't do so unless they were dragged to that position, or they didn't do so until their donors said that it was okay. For example, when we talk to the LGBT community and you talk about marriage equality, the majority of the Democratic Party wasn't cool with it until 2010, 11, 12, and 13. Our President Obama wasn't cool with it until 2013. Joe Biden. Oh God. But then you had people like Bernie Sanders, who was always on the right side of the equation since the 80s. Mm-hmm. Since the 70s.
That's true.
That's
part of why people like him so much.
Like, dog, like at that same time, Elizabeth Warren was a Republican. She wasn't for that. She wasn't speaking out against that. Like, she wasn't speaking out for that. Like, and not to bash Elizabeth Warren, but come on, dog. Like, here's the thing. I don't want to disagree and say that Democrats don't fight for us. It's just that a lot of times, unless it goes against the corporate, unless, as Martin Luther King once said, when it comes to the wealth redistribution to the average American, then the Democrat Party, who is beholden to the establishment, will do their job.
You know, I can't remember who to attribute to, but I might put it in the show notes. There's a tweet that encapsulates it brilliant. Like, people, there's pundits who complain about like the division in the Democratic Party, and it's like the party is divided. It's both anti-fracking activists and corporate, fracking executives. It's both people pushing Medicare for all and pharmaceutical companies pushing to squelch it. Of course, we are
a big tent party that has literally advocated on both sides of the equation. It depends on who has the louder voice. Is it the people or the money?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens when you're such a big tent party. That's the reason why the Joe Rogan thing, which we never talked about, the Joe Rogan controversy, made me upset. Because, as just a quick side note, Joe Rogan didn't like Bernie Sanders or half endorse Bernie Sanders because Bernie Sanders came to his position. Joe Rogan went to Bernie's position.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
He came to the left-wing position. It wasn't like Biden agreeing with Strom Thurmond that we should push the war on drugs from a right-wing perspective.
Yeah, I think a lot of people miss the forest of the trees, and like a lot of people's politics will inherently, they will factor in how full of SHI they think you are. And at the end of the day, even if they disagree with your ideology, if they think that you're actually being honest with them, they might like you. They might even like you enough to vote for you.
But keep playing. We're almost done with this, folks, and I'm sorry, but
In the U.S. House,
we're almost
Speaker
done with
Nancy Pelosi and Democrats passed a landmark bill on equal pay. Another bill to give 30 million Americans a raise by increasing the minimum wage, and groundbreaking legislation to finally give Medicare the power to negotiate lower drug prices for America's seniors and families. Those 3 bills and more than 275 other bipartisan bills are just gathering dust on Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's desk. Senator McConnell, America needs you to move those bills. Meanwhile, Democrats across the country are getting things done. Pennsylvania's Governor Tom Wolf is expanding the right to overtime pay. Michigan is too. Because if you're on the clock, you deserve to get paid. Nevada Governor Steve Sisolak and North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper are working to give hard-working teachers a raise. And speaking of the classroom, Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers unilaterally increased school funding by $65 million last year. In Colorado, Governor Jared Polis has enacted free all-day kindergarten. And in 29 states, we've helped pass minimum wage hikes into law, which will lift people out of poverty and improve lives for families. That's strength. That's action. Democracy takes action. And that's why I'm so inspired by young people. They respond to mass shootings, demanding policies that make schools safer. They react to a world that's literally on fire, with fire in their bellies, to push leaders to finally take action on climate change. They take on a road filled with potholes with a shovel and some dirt.
Wait. Okay,
Yes.
Here's the thing. Trump did not mention, he wasn't talking about climate change usually at all during the speech. Again, another time that you could have been like, while Trump has denied climate change, saying that it's a Chinese hoax, our young people is fighting the existential threat that Trump's own FBI and military says is the biggest threat to the country. Again, another opportunity to be like, we out here doing the Lord's work. We out here doing the work while President Joffrey is playing. And he is playing and he's not just playing games by himself, he's playing with the lives of our future. And he's denying the facts from his own people. This is another time where you could have did that. Again, Ms. Whitmer, while I have you here sitting in the front of the congregation, I'm not trying to critique, I'm not saying this because I don't like you. I think you're a fine governor. I'm saying this because you were literally picked because the establishment Democrats think that you're going to be the next big thing, especially running after this cycle in 2020. They're going to try to push you harder in leadership. I'm asking you, I am begging you to actually say something substantive and make your case. Make your case for why people would want to fight for us and then do the work of doing so. Because as of right now, that speech ain't getting it.
Definitely not.
Your actions afterwards and the things that you've supported and you being backed by Blue Cross Blue Shield and other people who actually hate Medicare for all, who actually hate the public option, ain't getting it either. Your actions must meet your rhetoric, and your rhetoric it's bland.
It really is. This is the thing is, the only way you're really going to beat Trump is if you excite enough of the electorate to come out and vote. That's actually, I think that was one of the biggest untold issues with Iowa is, say what you will about the apps and stuff, but the turnout was lower than expected. I think that's probably one of the most troubling things that came out of Monday, more so than anything else. We're going to need a lot of people to overclock both, voter suppression, both in the primary and the general, and getting those bodies there is going to make all the difference. Now, granted, that will probably be a bit easier when we're talking about the voting states and not the caucus states. But, those come with their own challenges, as you've talked about, Lawrence. But, sorry, I got a little sidetracked there. So, I think what we're going to do now, there's a quick story. Oh, sorry. I do want to get to that story. I just want to play, like, the first 5 minutes of what Bernie said. And just to give you a contrast. Like this is the reason. And we'll take. We're supposed to be taking our break now anyway. Let's plow through the break. There's just this quick story I wanted to hit on. There's for some of you who didn't see it, and then we'll play the Bernie clip, and then I think we'll call my friend in.
Yeah.
Last 20 minutes of the show, we'll go back to Iowa.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about what's going on in Kentucky. If you were following, a similar really draconian bill went through in South Dakota that basically targets transgender youth. And what they're doing in Kentucky is even worse. So here's just a couple of bullet points about what this legislation would end up doing. It could end up getting a lot of transgender kids killed, really. So it would make providing medical treatment, that includes blockers, HRT, surgery to transgender people under the age of 18 a felony, and revoke the medical licenses of anyone who violates it. 2, it allows anyone who was treated by a doctor for GD under the age, that's gender dysphoria, under the age of 18 to sue for damages for another 20 years. It gives both parents veto power over any treatment for gender dysphoria, and no agent of the state may override this. It forbids government agencies, such as teachers, from discouraging youth coming out to their parents. E.g., a teacher cannot advise a student not to come out because it is not safe. Can you believe that? It turns all government agents into mandatory reporters to the parents of a trans youth that they are trans. All teachers are legally required to tell parents if their child might be transgender. Just think of how crazy that sounds, especially if you are in Kentucky. Let's say you have like a super conservative, family that maybe it's like a lot of really gross people talk about like just killing trans folks. All of a sudden now, legally, these like people like teachers would have to narc you out to your conservative family. No government employee in Kentucky may be disciplined for expressing their opinion about gender identity, e.g., a teacher telling a trans kindergartner they're a disgusting, godforsaken abomination that should die because trans people are satanic would be protected speech. I think that would probably apply more to a high schooler than a kindergartner. But anyway, so those are, I basically just read them off, but God, that's just atrocious on so many levels. So with that, if you got friends in Kentucky, especially trans friends on the younger side, look out for them.
Dog, one, if that's happening, then that should be happening with the family. Like what happened to big government? What happened to the idea of big government? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to get between a child and his parent and their parents, and you're going to get you're gonna have this kid basically. If let's say, like, for those who may be thinking about it or even considering it, even somebody who is not sure, you're basically demonizing them. And you're using legislation to have the teacher and the school and the government, demonize this kid who may want to have autonomy over their own body. Like this is the thing. Now I have my own views on it, and some of my views may be backwards. I'm not even gonna get into it. But at the same times, like, get out of. I'm more libertarian on this, and when in the sense of, look, if there's a kid that believes that they are trans or a part of the LGBT community, whatever, let that kid and that family deal with it. It's not the school's business unless the kid brings it up to the school. It ain't nobody business except the family and that child. Let them deal with that. The fact that you're trying to get the government to get involved in it, you know what I'm saying? I feel like
it's small government unless it's something we don't like. That's kind of what Republicans
and I'm like, and that's the thing. I'm like, it's regressive. It's an aggressive idea. If we actually care about freedom, then let those kids and let those parents deal with that situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's insane.
All right, I'm gonna play this clip. This is New Deal Grandpa over. This is him responding to the State of the Union.
Notice, I want everybody to notice. Just first 3 to 5 minutes. Just notice the difference between what Miss Whitmore, how Miss Whitmore handled the situation, and how Sanders did.
Being here this evening. Tonight, we just listened to Donald Trump's third and what I believe will be his very last State of the Union address. And let me take this opportunity to briefly respond to what President Trump said, and equally important, to what he did not say, and what we must do together to create an economy and a government that works for all of us, not just the 1%. As all of you know, tonight and on many other occasions, President Trump has told the American people that the economy today is booming like it has never boomed before. Well, in truth, for Trump and his billionaire friends, he is right. The economy is really booming for them. In fact, the wealthiest people in our country have never, ever had it so good, and we are now experiencing more income and wealth inequality than any time in the last 100 years. In America today, the 3 wealthiest people in our country own more wealth than the bottom half of American society, while at the same time, 500,000 Americans are homeless, including 30,000 veterans. In America today, the top 1% earn 49% of all new income, while half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to pay the rent, to put food on the table, to provide childcare for their kids, or even to go to the doctor. In America today, hundreds of thousands of bright young people cannot afford to go to college. Millions are struggling with outrageous levels of student debt. All the while, President Trump wants to make massive cuts to Pell Grants and other educational programs. And this is what Trump really means when he talks about a booming economy. This is what he really means. Since he has been in office, billionaires in America have seen their wealth increase by $854 billion, a 37% increase.
So again, facts, dropping facts within the first, he's not even 3 minutes in. Like, what is he, 3 minutes in?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, just dropping facts. He's not even trying to warm you up with some story about some kid from a town that you don't care about. like he's not even doing that. He's like these are the lies. This is what he's doing. Now let me hit you with the policy that I want to do. That's basically what he goes into. And it's like that's how you, one, way is how you lose to Republicans and how you only talk to the choir. The other way is how you actually win against Trump and the Republicans.
Oh, yeah. So, speaking of Bernard Sanders, we are now joined. We are joined by a Bernard volunteer activist I've known for several years now. Let's make sure that this is working. Emily, could you say hello to the people at home?
Well, hello, Kalamazoo.
Oh, hello. Yeah. So,
what up?
So like I was saying earlier, we were talking about the Iowa Caucus earlier, and wanted to kind of go back to that issue. Again, the goofy James Bond villain type names that beyond the app, the Shadow Corporation and all that. But why don't we just start? I wanted to ask, you were actually on the ground there that day. I wanted to ask you just your experiences there and kind of start basic. One, we have open primaries here in Michigan. It's one of the few things that's kind of good about our politics. So I think a lot of people might be a little unfamiliar with the caucus system. And once you talk about that, maybe a little bit more about like your actual experience, and then also kind of your experience as the results didn't come in, and it's become this kind of dubious fiasco.
I'll run over. I'll try to jump into some of that. Let me know if I'm taking too long and you want to shift to something else really fast. I'll try and be succinct. So yes, the caucus process. That was new to me too. I'd been involved in my local elections in Indiana, where we also have open primaries, more or less. I thought I mostly understood the caucus process, but it was a little bit more complicated than I understood. And the main thing that's important to know about a caucus system is that after there are two rounds of voting, more or less. There's a first alignment and a second alignment. And a candidate has to hit 15% in order to be assigned any delegates at any level. And some of those are assigned at the more the local level, the district level, or the county level, and other ones are at the state level. So it gets complicated, but that's the general gist. So essentially what happens is, after the first alignment, when folks choose which corner of the room to go hang out in, to indicate their preference for the president, if a certain candidate has not if there's not at least 15% of the total caucus attendees supporting them, they are considered unviable. That means that those folks then have to decide if they want to realign for the second round. And sometimes folks decide not to do that. They don't want to align with someone else, so they'll just remain unaligned. But what that basically means is that you get a second set of results after the second alignment. And usually people do go choose someone else to go stand for. Now, there's some good things about the system. It kind of means that you're, in a way, it's a little bit like ranked choice voting, in that, you can go caucus for the person you want to, and you know that you will still have a chance to make your vote count, even if that person doesn't reach the viability threshold. So that's kind of nice. Unfortunately, it also allows for there to be some kind of, machinations and coups and plots going on for the second round.
Yep.
Because, so what could happen, for instance, would be, let's say Bernie had a decisive lead in the first alignment. Let's say the Yang gang didn't hit that threshold, and therefore they all decided to go throw their support behind, say, Pete Buttigieg or Amy Klobuchar. Well, suddenly you might see a dramatic shifting in the ranking up at the top. So that's a little interesting. So I basically, this was new to me. I just learned it on the fly. I've been in Iowa for 2 weeks, mostly door knocking and assisting with stuff on the ground here in a few different towns in Iowa. My good friend April Burt, shout out to April if she ever listens to this, who is a badass field organizer in Boone County. Let's see, what city is she in? I think she's actually in Boone. But she asked me and another friend of mine who's also out here volunteering if we wanted to be precinct captains. And I have to say, at the time, I didn't even know what that was. I was just like, sure, because I just say sure to everything.
The revolution is called. Yeah, yes.
I figured, I'll pitch in wherever somebody needs a hand. Sure. It's not like I can actually caucus on caucus night because I'm from out of town, so that's fine. I'm really glad I said yes to that, though, because that wound up being something really important. So essentially what I had to do was go in there, oversee things, organize the Bernie corner of the room, keep everybody pumped up and there, because if you leave, you don't count. But then the thing that came into play was on the second alignment. Essentially, you kind of have to, it gets a little bit more complicated than typical, fill in a circle on a ballot and leave style voting, because you have to kind of work the room and use your social skills to try to persuade people to come hang out with you and vote for your candidate. So that was really interesting.
How did that play out in your precinct, if I may ask?
Yeah, in my precinct, on the first tally, and I was out in a kind of a rural precinct, there wasn't huge voter turnout. But of the original 41 caucus attendees, in the first alignment, we had 16 for Sanders. The rest were distributed. I think, Warren and Buttigieg already had viability, so they had enough people. The Yang crowd did not. So it was basically me, a Pete Buttigieg guy, and a Warren chick staring at the Yang table like it was, a buffet and trying to figure out, so we all kind of descended on them. And, I will say with some pride that I took all but one of the Yang table for Bernie.
You're doing
I do have to ask.
Despite the attempts of the...
We lost connection.
So that was rather sad.
Lost connection.
There's some other duties, like you have to get names from your group who will be willing to go as delegates, county delegates, and then also alternates, etc. It's complicated. Anyway, but we were instructed by the Sanders campaign to report the tallies as soon as we had them, both at every stage of the process, and to submit those via a hotline. There was also an app that the Sanders campaign developed, not the app of infamy.
The shadow app.
A separate app just to collect those. I didn't personally use the app, but people a little bit higher up were doing that. But essentially they were collecting all this information straight from the precinct captains on the ground. And they didn't actually tell me to do this, but I'm really glad I did. I got the official sheet from the county chair, or the precinct chair, and I got a photo of it. Just to have. And later, actually, the Sanders campaign did text me and say, hey, do you happen to have a photo of that? And I was like, oh, yes, I do.
It's interesting you bring that up, Emily, because at the top of the show, we were just talking about an issue with Black Hawk County where the county's results were lower than what the DNC was reporting. And Lawrence, you want to interject?
And also that Tom Steyer and Deval Patrick got delegates from Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. And that they were literally caught stealing. There's no other way of saying it, but stealing delegates from people who didn't get a vote.
Yeah, I'd say let's call this what it is. It's theft. And
it
I hate
rigging.
to say this, but we're seeing examples of that cropping up all over the place, suspiciously in counties and precincts where Bernie did well. And the reason I was kind of on this, like flies on since yesterday, was because I as soon as we began to look at the list, the official Iowa Democratic Party, they have a website where you can go and look at all the official results. I immediately noticed something very interesting. The precinct where I was captain is missing from the list. Madrid 1 was not on the list. It went straight to second and then third. And unless I'm very wrong, I think something comes before second. So that's fun. Boone 4th was also missing, where my other friend was precinct captain. Hello, Jeremy White, if you're listening to this. So that was interesting to me because Bernie won my precinct handily. He took half the delegates available. And the same thing over in Boone, or Boone 4th. I don't think he won quite as decisively as he did in my precinct, but he definitely carried it. So then I thought that's funny.
I mean, it makes sense.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say it makes sense since they only put out 75% of the official count.
Thus far, yeah.
But now that also draws into suspicion about every county. They might have tried to take.
Well, it does.
Yeah, it draws into suspicion every county because now you're gonna have to look and see Well, what other county did they take votes from Warren and Sanders from?
That's the question. And you know, things began to trickle into, you know, all over Twitter. I'm looking at a photo right now from a tweet from Sean Bagniewski. I don't know if I'm saying that right. He said all 177 precincts in Polk County were provided to the state party at the same time at 2:30 Central. Not sure why they're not reporting all of them. They're selectively reporting precincts despite the fact that they've been submitted simultaneously. And I have another report from a friend of mine, Jennifer Wynn. She was a precinct chair in, let's see here, Hawarden, I think if I'm saying that right, precinct. Now, they caucused in the same room with the reading precinct folks. Same room. And those results were reported simultaneously. Again, this was in Sioux County. Except that the Hawarden results are not showing up, where Bernie won again handily. The reading precinct results are already up. Same room, submitted at the same time. We're seeing this happen over and over and over again. And yes, in some places, for instance, the Black Hawk County results, the results the IDP are reporting are at odds with what the Black Hawk County officials themselves reported. Looks like here we've got IDP is reporting 1,578 actual votes for Pete. Official numbers gave him 1,588. So that's interesting. And you know, and it's the perfect thing to do if you don't want to be caught, because it's tiny little bits here and there where you can say, oops, that could be an error. That's not a huge smoking gun. But that's exactly the way you would do it if you just needed to edge it out a little bit. And this nonsense is, you know, if we look at Pete Buttigieg and ask ourselves sort of what role is he playing here, I don't think he or anyone supporting him has any illusions about him becoming the president. He's polling at 7% nationwide. However, if you needed something to derail the Sanders momentum going into Super Tuesday in the early states, and you had some money, and you decided to dump all of it in Iowa with apparently no thought for the rest of the race, you might do exactly what the Pete Buttigieg campaign just did.
I mean, now you're sounding like a conspiracy theorist. Okay?
I know.
I have to. Yeah, this is the thing. This is the thing that makes me upset, because the first initial problem was that the app crashed outside of the outright corruption of who worked on the app. And the people that worked on the app is tied to people who are literally still running for the race right now. Is that outside of that first level of debauchery, the second level of debauchery is that we now find out that not only are the again, this is secondhand knowledge. We're gonna make that full disclosure. Even though you're there on the ground, you heard this secondhand from someone else, that other precincts who were literally gave them the same information or were in the same room are not showing up. Yep. And they're not being counted. Also, and the third thing that makes this look suspicious and look fishy is that you have delegates going to people who didn't get a vote. Yeah. So again, and we've been saying this all since 2015-16. The DNC already rigged the election against Bernie in 2016 with how they were funneling money through the states back to Hillary Clinton's campaign, and also Hillary Clinton literally controlling every press release and the function of the DNC while running for the presidency. So I mean, like, when you add up all this stuff, it looks like they haven't learned anything since then. And the only reason why I've been saying it all day on the show, I think the reason why they want to do this is because they want to depress voters. Because when you have a large turnout, that's better for the progressives. But when you have a lower turnout, it's going to be better for the establishment.
Of course.
Emily, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. Well, and you're absolutely right. It does depress turnout. People already have very little faith in the system, and this is exactly the kind of thing that demoralizes people further. In addition, I think they're also trying to kill the incredible enthusiasm and energy in the Sanders volunteer base. I mean, we've been kicking some major butt out here. And at one point we were knocking, I don't even remember how many doors.
I think at one point it was 100 doors a second or something like that.
Something like that. I'm hearing we're doing the same thing already in New Hampshire.
Yeah,
we smashed through our 10 million call goal for this the month, which was, we doubled it at one point because we hit the goal too early. And the DNC is seeing this, and they're realizing there's only so much their money can do. And in the past, they've been able to rely on being able to make money substitute for anything they needed, and they're finally being faced with the fact that we have a literal army on the ground, incredibly motivated, willing to do this for free, and there's not a whole lot they can do to combat that. So what do they have to do? They have to try to depress us. They have to make us, I'm sitting here looking around at my friends, and we've all been pouring our hearts into this for 2 weeks, and to watch the media and the DNC and the IDP basically just kind of muddy this to the point that the victory that we were owed, that to get to see winner projected across corporate media, to have that victory speech rolling into New Hampshire, we were denied that, and they're hoping that this is going to try to depress those just the energy and the enthusiasm that we've been able to rally. And I'm happy to report that seems to be in fact the opposite. If anything, I'm seeing everyone that I know doubling down, saying, you are not going to take this away from us. If anything, we're going to be fighting even harder now. And there are honestly a lot of good things coming out of this election. Among them, Joe Biden was left a distant afterthought, fourth place. So we've destroyed effectively this narrative that he is the front runner, despite all evidence to the contrary.
I honestly believe that he's actually in fifth.
Yeah,
and I think that it was so bad that he came in fifth.
Yeah.
But that's just me. That's my speculation.
Yeah. It's can you rig it so I'm in first place? And best we can do is fourth. I'm sorry.
This
week on Pawn Stars.
Oh man,
you have to feel for Simone Sanders right around now. Girl,
dog. Here's my problem, and I like Simone Sanders, but dog, she doesn't get a pass. She used to work for Bernie. She used to agree with Medicare for all, and then when she started working for Biden, she started switching her entire talking points. I've really not envied her the job of having to try to come up with an explanation every time Joe Biden opens his mouth and inserts his foot. Oh my God, dog! I laugh. I absolutely laugh because I'm just like.
So we've essentially neutralized that. That's pretty satisfying. Just the fact that the nation, which probably has been largely in the dark up till now, with how good Bernie's actually been doing. Because they're doing the same crap as they were doing in 2016 with the burying him. I think he's got 15 seconds of media so far. Yeah, well, now everyone has to see his name up on the screen there, even if they're trying to imply that he came in second or it's really close. Whatever. We've at least solidified front runner status. The other thing
we were joking earlier in the show that we'll find out Friday that Bernie won. It'll be at the bottom ticker of the CNN thing.
That's very likely, actually. And
as long as he won,
trying to do
as long as he won and got all the delegates, I don't care when they say it.
Yeah.
As long as he won. Now, here's the thing, though. We've seen how they rigged the primaries earlier with closed primaries, and how they rigged the primaries when it comes to other not New Hampshire, but in other ways. My thing is this: if people are advocating that caucuses should be dismantled,
yes,
then I need for everyone. I'm going to repeat this again. If you say that we need to get rid of caucuses, then we have to advocate for ranked choice voting.
Absolutely.
If we are not advocating for ranked choice voting, but we're just going to get rid of caucuses, that's just going to hurt progressives, because progressives do best in caucuses.
They tend to, and that was definitely the sort of the mindset I had from last year. I will say just this, having been on the inside of a caucus process for once, even though there are definite pros to the caucus system, there are definitely many cons as well. Yeah. It is not really democratic or fair to make it so that people can only participate in this, for a few hours, and they have to be there the entire time. That's hard for people with children, hard for people whose schedules just are not that flexible. it's bad enough when we already have one day for voting and a lot of people are working on that day. It's even worse when you have to show up at a specific time on that day. Very few areas have made allowance for the fact that some folks are housebound or may not be able to make it to that location. There are some satellite caucuses that people have done in order to try to expand the opportunities for those folks to be able to make it, but they're not really built into the system. So yeah, in some ways it can be better for progressives. The visibility of being able to actually see people showing up for their candidate is certainly nice. However, as we're seeing, it's also not cheat proof. There are still ways for people to get in there and screw around with the data and make it very unclear who's actually winning. So yeah, we absolutely need to continue to advocate for things like ranked choice voting, paper ballots with a clear trail, a way for voters to check on their ballots. I did just find out a number of counties, I believe in California, have signed up for something called ballot tracks, which is supposed to be a system where you can track your ballot almost exactly like it was a package you sent through the post office thing. Yeah, you can actually check the actual physical location of it, which is incredible. I really hope the whole state does that and that expands to the rest of the nation.
That way, when we see that, it goes to the DNC paper shredder mill, we can all go down there and start yelling. No.
Why is it in a truck in a parking lot 3 miles away?
Yeah.
So we're running pretty low. We're actually a little bit in overtime right now, but I wanted to make sure I had time to ask you. Granted, a lot of the talk has been about the fiasco in Iowa, the potential shenanigans that the DNC is going to be doing to try to. Yep. But I wanted to ask just what was your experience knocking on doors there in Iowa? Just let us know, give us a highlight.
A highlight. Let me think. I mean, generally speaking, good. I mean, canvassing can be a pretty thankless job. I mean, so many people are not home or just not really wanting to have a political conversation at that moment. You feel like you're, inconveniencing them. I will say it was a little bit of a drag doing it in the bitter cold, because normally if someone's undecided or is maybe open to talking about it, I want to have a little chat with them and, try to make a plug for my candidate. But when they're kind of peering at you around a door and it's, the feels like it's 14 below zero, you don't really feel like it's okay to do that. You want to just make it brief. That having been said, interactions with people who did want to talk were pretty good. One thing I did do because of the caucus system was even with people who told me they were already going to vote for someone else, some Buttigieg voters, for instance, I was able to kind of say, hey, that's great. Just so you know, because of the way the system works, if by some chance your candidate doesn't hit that threshold, you get a chance to caucus for a second choice. Have you considered that? And most of the people that I told this were not aware of that. And you could kind of see the wheels turning in their head. They were like, oh. And that kind of gave me a context where I could say, well, what are some issues that are important to you? And it gave me a chance to kind of still get a plug-in for Bernie without them feeling defensive or like I was trying to change their mind. It was like, let's just think through this here and try to be strategic and again, going back to the issues and kind of drawing out of people what's important to them and getting them thinking. And then, you never know. They might have heard something about Bernie that might have actually changed their mind. So that was good to be able to do. But most of the young people I spoke to, basically if somebody was under, 35 or so, very good odds. They already knew about Bernie, were already hardcore, had, knew their caucus location, were ready to go, were bringing the whole household. So that was very good to see.
All right. Yeah, you got to get those young people to vote if you want that New Deal grandpa. All right. Well, we got to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Emily, for joining us. Godspeed, whatever you're doing next. I know you're out there, trying to get us through this primary. So I think with that, we're going to close out the show. I want to thank y'all for listening. Again, you can find our program on YouTube, Hoodrat Strategist radio program, and check out our Facebook page where we post them every week. This episode will probably be up sometime tomorrow morning or afternoon. Until next time, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.